Hello guys, I'm saying hello again because it's felt like quite some time since I've recorded a video. It won't be for you, but it will be for me, as unfortunately, and some of your eagle-eyed viewers out there will probably notice the change, but yes, the character I have in front of me has changed since the last video, and that's simply because I had a data corruption error. And if you really want to know why, it's a little bit of a forewarning to anybody else who might be entertaining the same idea. I decided to roll the dice in terms of saving this kind of Z-Tool file to permanently removable media, saving it directly. Not just copying it, but saving it directly. And of course, if you don't safely remove the hardware, it has a chance of getting corrupted, and that's exactly what happened. So, fortunately, that's the story there. So it did put me about 3 or 4 videos back. So unfortunately I've now ended up with different folds, you can probably tell there. And actually the funny thing is I don't think the folds were as good as what I had before, but you know, instead of trying to recreate exactly the same as what I had earlier, I just kind of went with the same idea I did it the first time, and I've got different results. But anyway, I just wanted to explain that just in case it's like, well, that looks a little bit different. Has he been cheating? And no, in fact, I've had the opposite of cheating. I've been put back, unfortunately. Okay, so hopefully, if you're out there considering the idea of saving directly to removable storage, please don't. It's a very bad idea. I also lost a bunch of other files as well, not just a Z-Tool file, but I lost quite a few references and mood boards and what have you and all that jazz, so that was not a smart move on my part at all. So all that behind me now and all that behind us, let's go ahead now and have a look at where we last left off with the vest. So I've got different folds here, but fundamentally it's still very much at the same stage. Now with the vest here, I've told you before that we're going to have this sort of detailing section in Substance Painter more than we do in ZBrush. So all I'm kind of concerned about here at the moment is just how the vest looks overall. Okay, there's only one more thing I sort of want to do, is I just want to solo this out, and essentially I want to add like edge paneling to the sort of the vest. And what I mean by that, I'll show you. It's a bit better to show you than it is to explain, so I'll just go ahead and show you what I mean. So for example here on this kind of fold over there, I very much want this edge to be a different color, like a different shade or something like that. So maybe if this vest was, I don't know, black, let's say, maybe that would be some kind of white trim. Okay, so in order to do that, and again, you could, if you wanted to, you know, just go all the way around the model and, you know, painstakingly do the trim and what have you. But I think it's actually a bit wiser to wait until we get to Substance Painter before we start doing that in any kind of real tangibility. That makes sense. All I'm going to do here now is just bring my standard brush in and just try and ensure that the edge there, maybe a bit smaller than that, is a bit smaller, please. Yes, there we go. It's just ensure that this edge is slightly raised up above all the other parts there. Just something like that. Okay. And all that's going to do is just sort of help ease the Substance Painter part. I'll be able to see just exactly how much of that edge I had dedicated in the high-res sculpt, okay? And of course you can achieve this by 2 ways. You can use the standard brush on the outside, and you can use the inverse function of the standard brush to kind of push in the other areas as well. I'm going to do the same thing for the collar here, so I'm just going to make sure that the very edge of this collar has a kind of trim that's visible, okay? So I'm just going to go all the way around very, very lightly. You can see I've not got much power or intensity on my standard brush yet. I'm just going to go all the way around, because in Substance Painter we can use the kind of click drag feature, almost like the pen tool in Photoshop or similar kind of image editing software, just to go ahead and basically create a very deliberate edge around any kind of surface. And it's a fantastic tool. Ever since I discovered it, I've always wanted to do things like paneling and edge lines in Substance Painter. That's always worked out better for me. But of course you have the freedom, of course, to say, no, I prefer to do it in ZBrush. So if you do prefer to do it in ZBrush, then by all means go ahead and do it in ZBrush. But for me, I'm just going to go ahead now and just highlight, just help emphasize a certain area and where that panel is going to be. I'm not even going to bring in the damn standard tool, because I just want to hint at it at the moment. I don't really want to define it per se. Substance Painter can do that no problem with a height layer there, so we don't have to worry about being too definitive about where that is. Just a rough, you can see there, rough placement all the way around. Now of course we're not going to leave it particularly shabby. If you want it, I want it kind of flat, so I'm going to go around with the trim dynamic brush and just make sure that it's not too sausage-like, because the standard brush does, as you know, have a tendency to turn everything into, well, like a sausage type of surface. Okay, so the trim dynamic brush can just remedy some of that. And we'll just do that along here. And you can see that actually it's sort of creating that quite definitive edge line there, which is cool. That's exactly what I wanted, essentially. Okay, so just going around. We're not by any means finished. Just showing you here. Okay. So, funny story, during the data corruption thing, you know how I'd spent videos criticizing how ZBrush autosave was so annoying? Turns out that ZBrush autosave is what saved me in the end, so now I can no longer criticize ZBrush autosave. If it wasn't ZBrush autosave, I would have seen, because you see the thing is, the data corruption that occurred for me didn't just delete my latest Z tool, because, you know, I do the habit of saving it, as multiple different files. I don't just have, keep working off exactly the same file across, many videos or many stages of character production. I like to save them out after key parts have been complete. And the funny thing about the data corruption, of course, it corrupted the latest 2 files or latest 2 Z tools I had. So essentially, if you're not sure how much work I sort of lost there, it's essentially almost 10 videos worth. At least I want to estimate it to be. It was pre the Vembrace, pre-glove, before we sort of even started doing any detail on the gloves, putting in all those fabric folds and whatnot. So it was a lot of content just lost, and unfortunately I remembered about ZBrush. Oh, this is annoying here. Let's just go from there. I remembered about ZBrush autosave, and I looked it up and thought, is it a temporary cache or is it a permanent cache? And it turns out it is a permanent cache, which was easily accessible in was it the local app data in your documents somewhere? So in there I found one, and it had saved one recently where the Vembraces were complete. Some of the adjustments to the vest were already made, but everything but the folds to the vest was there. The actual folds for the vest I had done had not had the chance to save, likely because it tried to do that, but I cancelled it like a ninny. So I can't criticize ZBrush anymore. Okay, so with that kind of paneling there, hopefully you see the effect I'm going for. I'm only going to add that, well, I say only going to add that, but actually I'm going to add that in quite a few places. I'm going to come down here and add it down there. I basically want the trim to go all the way around the edge, because I think that's going to give it quite a nice look. It's going to give it quite a nice aristocratic look, because at the moment our character is running the risk of being quite, what's the word here? Is it bland? I suppose you could use bland. It's very much going to come down to the stenciling and whatnot we pick later on in Substance Painter, which is going to help kind of Lady Maria this character a little bit more than just like an average sort of, I could say, country and western type looking character, because of course we're fighting the natural idea of country and western characters usually look pretty worn out, pretty beat down, wearing old stuff. It's not exactly premium, brand new, shining stuff, is it? But with Lady Maria, you've kind of got the opposite almost. So we're kind of marrying 2 opposing ideas, actually. So it's quite a challenge. And I'm not going to lie, there have been multiple times where I myself have not so much spent time in the Valley of the Suck, but I've spent time in the Valley of the Uninspired. And that's almost somewhat worse, because sometimes inspiration takes a very, very hefty vacation on you, and you really have to be in the right mindset to try and get that inspiration back. And if you're designers and artists out there, I think I'm already preaching to the converted. I think you already know fully well what I'm talking about. But it can take a long while or a short eternity before the inspiration fairy, finally decides to pay you a visit and smack you on the head with that magical wand she's got. And that was definitely encountered a few times in this project. It's natural. We've got lots of other things going on in our lives. I think many of us out there probably just do this as a hobby. And, life gets in the way. life has a habit of doing that. And the inspiration fairy can kind of be like, well, you're busy with this, I'm going to leave you alone for a bit. So, yeah. Okay, let's take inspiration fairy stories out and what have you. Let's go ahead and we'll just do this final trimming on the outside here. I'm doing it in the highest subdivision level, which is not so bad, but if the resolution is there, like I think it is on this shoulder here, feel free to kind of drop it down a bit if you like, just so that we get a cleaner, because the trim dynamic brush can leave some sort of like faceting residue behind on it. It's kind of like unsmoothed edges behind in its wake, so it's always nice to work at a lower subdivision level just in case you get a lot of that artifacting and it's hard to smooth away at the highest subdivision level. So just going around in the third subdivision level there, and I say around the edges here of the, so you can see there's that kind of what I was talking about there. Okay, so it is a little bit hard to notice the effects so much on the edge of something like this, that kind of arm sleeves here, because it's such a big area and we've got folds that almost sit right around the contours anyhow, so this will be a part that's probably going to be more heavily weighted to what Substance Painter can pull off. ZBrush here is only at best assisting where that's going to go, and you can see here that actually turning to subdivision 4 is actually necessary to get the resolution to sort of trim. Otherwise we're kind of trimming, there's not enough sort of resolution to trim essentially. So yeah, sometimes you just got to play around with all sorts of different things with ZBrush really. Okay, I'll do one big smooth later. Okay, let's go around this side here. Okay. Apologies if this is quite boring, but I don't want to skip anything, so I want to show you the whole sort of process essentially. So if it is boring, well, feel free to skip ahead to where this kind of process is completed. Although you'll miss out on all my wonderful little stories and anecdotes, you know, because they're amazingly entertaining, aren't they? Okay, a little bit more just around the back here. Okay, just keep going up, and you can see we're having some effect. It's not a major effect, but just having some effect on the outside edges here. We're getting a lot of that kind of artifacting here now as the trim dynamic brush is attempting to read the angle of the normal we're passing the brush along on. There we go. Okay, let's rotate it up this way. Okay, let's move that down, and one more here. Oops, not there. Just here. There we go. Smooth that down. Okay, so now if we desolar that, we should see we just got a light contour around that area there. Okay. Right, believe it or not, that's for the vest. That's where we're going to leave it. Okay, what I want to turn my attention to now is we've spent a lot of time on the vest. Let's go ahead and actually look at this larger belt here, because let's see what we're going to do about that. And I actually have some ideas I'm going to share with you about that in the next video.